How old do we ever truly know the ones we love? Do we see them for who they are, or for who we need them to be? These questions linger, hauntingly simple yet deeply unsettling, lingering in the quiet spaces of a life that seemed, to anyone watching, like the picture of stability. Nolan Hastings, a man whose life was structured as precisely as the buildings he designed. In his world, every line, every detail had purpose. Everything in place. A successful architect by profession, a husband by devotion, and a man who believed that trust was as solid as any foundation he could lay. Elise, his wife, was as much a part of that foundation as any beam or brick. 10 years into their marriage, she was a steadying presence, the kind of partner he believed was as committed to their life together as he was. With her sharp intelligence, boundless warmth, and effortless grace, Elise had woven herself into the fabric of Nolan's life. Their lives seemed to complement each other seamlessly. She was the compassionate one, the listener, the one who brought levity to his intensity. Friends envied them, admiring how they had what many would call a perfect life. A phrase, perhaps, that anyone would admire: a comfortable home in a quiet, tree-lined suburb, a close-knit circle of friends, frequent travel, and a shared love for small luxuries, weekend getaways, impromptu dinners out, and cozy evenings spent watching the flames dance in the fireplace. By all accounts, they were the epitome of what people thought a happy, fulfilled couple should be. And no one believed it because he wanted to. He saw what he wanted to see: stability, partnership, a love that could weather any storm. But life has a way of leaving hints, faint and often unnoticed, like whispers in the background of a familiar song. One by one, things began to appear, not alarms, just fragments that could easily be dismissed. It was small at first. A change in her laughter, a new distance in her smile, nights spent apart for what she called work functions that seemed to stretch longer and grow more frequent. A lingering silence that settled between them where conversation used to flow effortlessly. Perhaps he should have looked closer, but Nolan trusted her, or rather, he trusted the life they had built together. 10 years of love, laughter, and memories, 10 years where, to him, she had been an unwavering constant. He told himself it was just a phase, an adjustment, one of those ebbs that every marriage endures. Until one evening something happened. It was a moment so ordinary, so fleeting, that it could easily have gone unnoticed. But this time it caught his eye. A late notification on her phone, one text, a mere blink of a message. Just one small light on her screen. Yet, in that instant, something stirred within him. A feeling he couldn't quite name. A feeling that clashed with everything he believed about their marriage. He dismissed it as nothing, as paranoia perhaps, but that feeling refused to fade. It sat there, unanswered, as if beckoning him to look closer. As he found himself gazing at that phone, an unsettling thought took root. It was a feeling of uncertainty that he couldn't shake, one that seemed to speak to him in a voice he barely recognized. That night, Nolan stood on the edge of a choice that would change everything. And so, with this single moment, a life so carefully built began to shift, revealing questions he never thought he'd have to ask. Was it all an illusion? Had he missed something crucial all along? How could the person he thought he knew better than anyone else be hiding something so profound? And if he was wrong about her, what else in their life wasn't as it seemed? This story is about trust, how it builds and binds two people, and how, with a single crack, it can come crashing down. Join us as we walk through the unraveling, the hidden moments, and the buried secrets that lay beneath the surface of a love that was in so many ways almost perfect. To understand how a life together could begin to fracture, we must first step back to see who these people truly were and the foundations that bound them. Nolan Hastings grew up in a small, tight-knit town, a place where trust and loyalty weren't just ideals, they were the fabric of life. His father, a factory worker who clocked in day after day with unwavering dedication, taught him the value of commitment. His mother, the steady force at home, was the person everyone could rely on for a word of wisdom or a hot meal. In Nolan's world, loyalty was an unspoken vow, a core principle that guided every decision. As Nolan entered adulthood, he carried these values like a compass, using them to steer his life, his career, and eventually his marriage. He was the kind of man who didn't stray from his promises, the type who put others before himself, who chose family over fleeting ambitions. Becoming an architect suited him perfectly. He enjoyed the precision, the discipline, the satisfaction of watching ideas take physical form. Every blueprint, every corner, every line held meaning. Much like his profession, his love for Elise was structured, dependable, built on a foundation he thought was immovable. In their early years together, Nolan's dedication showed in countless ways. Late nights at the office were rare because he'd rather spend the evening at home, cooking dinner or helping Elise with her own projects. Promotions that would have taken him away more frequently were turned down. just so he could keep a semblance of balance and focus on what truly mattered. While Nolan was passionate about his work, Elise was always his priority. He made his choices around her, planning their lives, vacations, even day-to-day moments, with her happiness at the center. For 10 years he kept to this path, and every time he glanced back, it seemed the sacrifices were worth it. Nolan believed himself fulfilled, believed that in their quiet, steadfast way, they were a model couple, two people who could weather the demands of life without falling out of step. He had done everything right, or so he thought. But perhaps life doesn't always follow the straight lines we try to draw. Elise was a woman defined by contrast. Raised in the city, her upbringing couldn't have been more different from Nolan's. Her parents, successful in their own ways but deeply distracted by their careers, were people who valued ambition over attachment, who believed self-reliance was the only path to a meaningful life. While Nolan's home was one of togetherness, Elise's was one of independence, where love was present but rarely spoken aloud. She became, by necessity, self-sufficient and resilient, learning to find her place in a world that often felt as she's older demanded. Elise became magnetic in her own right, a blend of charm, intelligence, and effortless confidence. She was the woman people noticed not just because of her looks, but because she exuded the type of self-assurance that seemed to promise success. Friends gravitated towards her. Colleagues respected her ambition. She was, by all accounts, a rising star in the business world, admired for her quick mind and charm that could turn a room in her favor. Yet, beneath the surface, there was always a sense that Elise longed for something she couldn't quite name. When she met Nolan, his stability was, to her, a revelation. Here was a man who represented everything her life had lacked: consistency, commitment, a quiet sort of love that required no show or pretense. He was her anchor, the force that promised her a life removed from the restless, chaotic world she'd always known. In Nolan, Elise found a balance, a steadying presence that made her feel, for the first time, that she could be put out of the servicing class. Something began to shift. The life she thought she wanted began to feel smaller. The routines that had once seemed comforting now felt confining. The drive that had once brought her professional success now created a hunger that her personal life could never quite satisfy. She didn't know when it happened or how, but as Nolan built his world around her, Elise began to feel as though she were slipping away. Their life together started with every bit of promise they had hoped for. Flashback to their early years, moments of laughter, shared dreams, and the kind of partnership that seemed solid and unbreakable. Their first date was simple yet memorable. A quiet evening in a cozy cafe where they talked for hours, their laughter punctuating the quiet ambience. It was then that Nolan knew he'd found someone he wanted to spend his life with, someone who completed him in ways he hadn't known he needed. Their wedding was a beautiful day, filled with friends and family. They exchanged vows, looking into each other's eyes with a sense of certainty. Nolan's friends saw him as lucky, landing a woman like Elise who was as brilliant as she was captivating. Elise's friends remarked on how grounded Nolan made her, how his